Hey story lovers. If you're into mystery, suspense, and unexpected twists, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe, relax, and let's dive into today's story. Paris was glowing that evening, golden light dripping off the rooftops, the air thick with the hum of a city that never truly rests. On the rooftop of a stylish bar in Le Marais, laughter mixed with soft jazz floated through the night air. Elena entered like a storm dressed in velvet, black heels, crimson lips, and eyes that didn't search, they commanded. Adrian noticed her before she even stepped onto the terrace. From the corner of his eye, through his untouched glass of whiskey, he watched her walk, shoulders square, head high, aura untouchable. She wasn't just beautiful, she was dangerously composed, like she knew every room she walked into was already hers. He didn't mean to stare. But she looked like a secret worth keeping. Their eyes met. And in that moment, the world shrank. Conversations blurred into white noise. The lights seemed to dim around her. Her gaze held his for a heartbeat too long, enough to make him believe it wasn't by accident. Elena wasn't the type to believe in clichés. Soulmates? Please. She didn't even believe in breakfast dates. But something about that man, sitting alone with his watch slightly undone and his tie loosened like he'd escaped a boardroom war, caught her off guard. She didn't look away immediately, and when she did, she smiled like she knew he'd follow. He did. The crowd became a sea of nobodies as Adrian approached. He didn't think. He just moved. She was standing at the bar, her fingers resting on a wine glass, pretending not to notice him. Red suits you, he said, nodding toward her lipstick. Confidence suits you, she replied, arching an eyebrow. Too much? No. Just enough to make me wonder if I should walk away or wait to see what happens next. Adrian grinned. Then let's both find out. They laughed. It was easy. Instant. Charged. They talked for hours as if they'd known each other in another life, one where he wasn't a workaholic consultant avoiding relationships, and she wasn't the emotionally unavailable daughter of a diplomat. Their words danced around each other, flirting with honesty, hinting at histories neither of them wanted to unpack. But beneath the wit and charm, something deeper simmered. Not love. Not yet. But something reckless. Something hungry. He asked her to dance, not because the music called for it, but because the space between them was too much to bear. Under the dim lights, their bodies found rhythm, their hands too comfortable, their movements too familiar for strangers. He whispered something in her ear. She leaned closer. He brushed a lock of hair from her cheek. Her breath caught. And just like that, the line between curiosity and craving disappeared. They didn't say goodbye that night. Back in her apartment, the air was thick with silence and anticipation. Her walls were filled with books, framed sketches, and city maps, but no photos of lovers. She wasn't one to let people stay. Adrian didn't ask questions. He kissed her like he needed her to forget everyone who came before. She responded like she already had. That night wasn't about falling. It was about colliding. A rush of want, unfiltered and intense. They didn't sleep, they explored. Their bodies spoke a language more fluent than their mouths had dared. By sunrise, she was curled against him. Vulnerable. Unusual. And for once, she didn't rush to dress. He, too, lingered. Just long enough to memorize the curve of her shoulder against the light. No promises were made. But in their silence, something unspoken began. It wasn't love. But it was more than lust. It was the beginning of something neither of them were ready for, but couldn't walk away from. They became routine before either of them realized it. Elena would text at odd hours. You awake? You still thinking about last time? Adrian would drop everything, even meetings. Even sleep. She'd open the door without a word, pull him in by the collar, and he'd forget the world outside. It wasn't about dates. They never went to museums or strolled the Seine like lovers did. They didn't hold hands or talk about families. It was her apartment. Her perfume. Her bed. Her rules. And he never asked for more. But he wanted more. He convinced himself he didn't. He told himself it was physical, the way her back arched when he kissed her neck, or how she bit her lip when she laughed. He memorized her, every freckle, every breathless whisper. But he never truly knew her. And yet, she consumed him. At work, she lived in the space between thoughts. A perfume memory. A flash of skin. A word she once said in French that he never asked the meaning of but replayed over and over in his mind. Desire became distraction. Distraction became addiction. One night, he found himself outside her building without even remembering how he got there. She opened the door in a silk robe, surprised but not unhappy. I didn't call, she said softly. I know. You needed me? I needed something. She didn't ask what. She just pulled him inside. As always. But something shifted that night. He touched her slower. His lips lingered longer. He held her like he didn't want to break the moment. And for the first time, she looked at him differently, not as a body, not as a fix, but as something more. She kissed his chest afterward and stayed awake longer than usual. But obsession is a dangerous illusion. One night, after they'd collapsed in bed, sweaty and breathless, Adrian rolled to face her. "Do you ever think about us? Outside this room?" She froze. Her fingers paused mid-trace on his shoulder. "Elena? There is no us, Adrian. We're good at this. Why ruin it?" He laughed, but it wasn't real. "You say that like it's a bad thing. Wanting more. It is when more means risk. People want. People leave. This doesn't break hearts." "It doesn't?" he asked, voice low. She didn't answer. Because the truth was, it already had. From then on, the cracks began. He started noticing the coldness. How she avoided eye contact when he said anything remotely emotional. How she would change the subject if he mentioned his childhood or asked about hers. But he kept going back. Kept needing her. Because obsession isn't logical. It doesn't care about signs or dignity. It feeds on moments and blinds you to the void between them. He began dreaming about her. Not just her body, her laughter. Her stories. The version of her that might exist if she let him in. He created fantasies that she never promised and expectations she never agreed to. One night, while she was asleep, he looked around her apartment. No photos. No memories. Just art. Abstract. Unreadable. Like her. He realized he knew her skin better than her soul. And that terrified him. One evening, she canceled on him. No excuse. No reason. Just, not tonight. He waited for hours. Then he went to the bar where they first met. Sat alone. Stared at the door. She didn't come. A woman tried to flirt with him. He barely noticed. Because this wasn't about sex anymore. It hadn't been for a while. This was about wanting to be seen. To matter. And somewhere along the line, he'd fallen into the trap of believing that if he just gave enough time, touch, obsession, she'd give something real back. But lust doesn't promise return. It only promises now. That night, he went home alone. He didn't text her. She didn't text him. And for the first time in weeks, he felt the silence, not as a break, but as a loss. Because the hardest part about lust is when it feels like love, but only to one of you. Adrian didn't reach out for 3 days. 3 full days of pacing around his apartment, replaying old voice messages, checking his phone every hour only to lock the screen again. He didn't understand how someone could be so close to him and yet so completely unreachable. When the 4th day came, he walked to her place, not out of anger, not even desperation. Just confusion. She opened the door in casual clothes this time, no silk, no perfume. Her eyes widened slightly, but her face stayed unreadable. "You okay?" she asked, stepping aside. "I'm not sure," he replied honestly. She didn't speak. Just led him inside. No kiss. No heat. Just silence. He sat on the edge of her couch while she poured tea, not wine. There was a kind of chill between them, like a season had passed without warning. "I haven't heard from you," he said. "You noticed." "Elena." She handed him the cup. "You want honesty or comfort?" He blinked. "Can I not have both?" "No. Not here. Not with us." He put the cup down. "Why are you doing this?" Her expression flickered. "Doing what?" "Pulling away when I get close. Acting like this is just physical when we both know it's not." She took a deep breath. "Maybe it is just physical. And maybe you're the one pretending it's not." He stared at her. "Do you believe that?" She hesitated. "Too long. Then why do you let me stay the night? Why do you curl into me afterward like you're afraid I'll disappear?" "Elena," he said, softer now, "what are you running from?" For a moment, her mask cracked. Just a little. And then she looked away. "You don't want to know me, Adrian. You want the version of me that you built in your head. That's not fair." "No," she said, her voice low, "what's not fair is making someone your emotional home when they've only ever given you their body." That hurt. But it was true. Still, he didn't walk away. "Then tell me the truth," he said. "Tell me you don't feel anything when I touch you. Tell me you wouldn't miss me if I left." She stared at him like he'd asked her to breathe underwater. But the words didn't come. Because truth was no longer simple. Later that night, they lay side by side, backs turned. No touching. No talking. The distance between them had never felt wider. And that was when Adrian realized something that stung deeper than rejection. He wasn't fighting for love. He was fighting for proof that what they had was real. That the moments they shared, the intimacy, the laughter, the glances, they weren't one-sided illusions. But maybe they were. And maybe the hardest part of wanting someone is realizing they don't want to be saved. The next morning, he left before she woke up. No note. No goodbye. Just silence. Not as revenge, but as surrender. Back at his place, he sat on the floor of his living room and let the truth hit him like a wave. Lust had brought them together. It had blurred the lines, burned through the rules. But now that the fire was dimming, all that remained were the ashes of what might have been. And for the first time, he wondered. Had he mistaken the intensity of wanting her for the presence of loving her? Or worse, had she loved him all along and was too broken to show it? The next time she called, he didn't answer. Because the conflict wasn't just between them anymore. It was inside him. And for once, he needed to sit in that silence. Not to punish her, but to finally hear his own heart speak. Adrian didn't see Elena for 2 weeks. Not because he didn't want to, but because for once, he chose to stay still and let the silence do the talking. He kept waiting for the craving to pass. For the urge to text her to fade like it usually did after a few days of distance. But this time, the silence grew louder. Not with desire, but with emptiness. He started realizing that what he missed wasn't the nights or the passion or even her scent on his pillow. He missed her laugh mid-kiss. Her sudden seriousness when she talked about books. The way her eyes softened when she thought no one was watching. It hit him slowly, what he had mistaken for lust was something else entirely. One night, he found himself sitting at the same rooftop bar where they first met. Same seat. Same drink. Only this time, it wasn't her lips he craved. It was her presence. He thought about how he had watched her for weeks without ever really seeing her. How he had memorized her body without ever learning how her heart worked. And worse, how he had allowed her to stay in control, believing that if he didn't ask for more, maybe she'd offer it one day. But love isn't born out of quiet submission. It needs space, truth, and courage. Meanwhile, Elena wasn't fine either. She kept pretending. To friends. To mirrors. To herself. But the absence was too heavy. Her apartment felt colder. Emptier. The sheets didn't smell like him anymore. She hated that. She kept replaying the last thing he said. Tell me you don't feel anything when I touch you. And the truth was, she did feel. Every time. But fear had always been her compass. Fear of vulnerability. Fear of needing someone. Fear of being seen, not as she looked, but as she was. Because when someone sees you, they can hurt you. And Elena had made a life out of avoiding that kind of risk. But for the first time, silence didn't protect her. It punished her. One rainy afternoon, she opened a book she'd never read before, one Adrian once mentioned offhand. There was a line underlined in pencil. The body remembers what the heart tries to forget. And that was when she broke. She realized that no matter how often she told herself it was just physical, her heart had kept the receipts. He had seen her. Not fully. Not perfectly. But more than anyone had in years. And she pushed him away because she didn't believe she deserved to be held that closely. That night, she called him. He didn't pick up. So she sent a voice message, unfiltered, trembling, real. Adrian? I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be loved. But I miss you. Not your body. You. I miss the way you look at me like I'm worth understanding. I miss how you listen even when I say nothing. I miss how you make me feel like I can be someone softer. I'm scared. But if you still feel anything, come find me. And I promise I'll stop hiding. She didn't expect him to respond. But he did. Within minutes. They met at the rooftop again. The rain had cleared. The city shimmered. No kiss. No clever lines. Just him. Just her. Adrian looked into her eyes, this time not searching for what he wanted to see, but what was really there. Why now? He asked. Because I was too proud to admit I felt everything. He smiled. Even when you said it was just touch? She nodded, eyes shining. It was never just about touch. I just didn't know how to say that without breaking. He took her hand. Break, he said. I'll stay. And just like that, lust gave way to something far more dangerous. Far more powerful. And far more honest. Love. But not the dreamy kind. The earned kind. Their second beginning wasn't a movie scene. No dramatic music. No candlelit promises. Just two flawed people, trying to learn each other without hiding behind bodies or walls. Adrian didn't rush. He stopped counting the days between kisses, stopped measuring her affection in touches and texts. Instead, he started asking real questions. What was your childhood like? What do you believe about love? What scares you the most about staying? And slowly, Elena answered. Not all at once. But enough. She told him about her parents' cold marriage. About the boy who left her when she showed him the real her. About how she learned to weaponize her beauty so no one would ever ask about her pain. I thought if I gave men my body, she said one night, they wouldn't ask for my soul. Adrian touched her hand gently. I don't want your body if your soul is locked away. She cried, and didn't hide her face. That was the first time they made love, not lust. They stopped using her apartment as a hiding place. They went out. Held hands. Laughed in bookstores. Got caught in the rain. Cooked dinner and burned it. Sometimes, they fought. Because real love isn't smooth, it's honest. Raw. Adrian learned not to shrink himself to keep her comfortable. Elena learned not to push him away the moment things got hard. It wasn't perfect. But it was real. One afternoon, as they sat in a small cafe, she looked at him, studying the lines in his face like she was seeing him for the first time. You loved me when I didn't even love myself. I just saw what you were afraid to admit, he said. She smiled. And what was that? That you weren't made for empty nights and guarded hearts. You were made to be loved in the daylight. Fully. Fiercely. Elena no longer wore the silk robe when he came over. She wore sweatshirts and let him kiss her in the kitchen. She stopped pretending. Because she didn't need to seduce him anymore to be loved. One night, while lying in bed, she whispered, "Do you remember the first thing you said to me?" Adrian grinned. At the bar? Yeah, you looked like you needed to be seen. She touched his cheek. You still see me? Every version of you, he said. Even the ones you're still becoming. Lust had been the door. But love, real, tender, terrifying love, was what kept them inside. They had both changed. Not into different people. But into truer ones. Because the right kind of love doesn't replace who you are. It uncovers who you've been all along.